Stan Arthur here for the I Love St. Pete Facebook group. If you're a business owner looking to connect with tens of thousands of potential new local customers, you owe it to yourself to get enrolled in our Key Tag Rewards program. Since 2019, we've signed up more than 200 local merchants. Sponsor opportunities are available too, such as our group banner ad and even your own custom key tags. Just go to stpetekeytag.com, get enrolled, and get ready to get busy. stpetekeytag.com.
Notoriety Sports Network. Breaking news, live shows, unprecedented content. Notoriety Sports Network. Built different.
What a performance. Every line, every D, the goaltender, kind of shared sacrifice. You can see it. You can see your determination. All right, it's just one more step. What game's the hardest one to win though, boys? The fourth one. You have put yourselves in a position, but this is not a time to take a break.
We're obviously one win away now. I know how fun it was last year when we won, so want to do that again. You don't know how many chances you're going to get.
This group's, very mature in terms of realizing the task at hand.
We're going to do whatever it takes to win the next game, and we're not satisfied until that's done.
We're very focused. We have a goal in mind because you got to stay in the present, stay in the moment to win your shift. Don't be too high, don't be too low.
It's all we're really focused on and working together as a team on it, and we're trying to create something special.
Process over outcome. Work over hope. That's what we do. TV timeout to TV timeout to TV timeout. Close these out, boys.
Shoot, score! Ruda!
Now to Victor Hedman. Winds and shoots. Score! Nothing changes in our game. Nothing changes. Got a lot across the board. You need a 2-on-0. Look at that. Score! Kucherov! Four check together. Shoots. Saved by Price. Johnson scores. Boys with the puck, bro. Tyler Johnson! Tyler Johnson!
Right, because this isn't over yet. Right, boys, you guys are special. F***ing A.
Oh, wait, let's have the best game of our life tonight!
What's going on? Welcome back to another edition of the Evolution of Sports Talk Television here, getting you ready for Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final between your Tampa Bay Lightning and, of course, the Montreal Canadiens. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. How do we start off this special edition for your Tampa Bay Lightning, getting you ready for Game 4? Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. On tonight's show, we'll have a hockey roundtable, if you will, because, I've been kind of told lately, you don't talk hockey here on the Sports Web enough. Well, enough of that mess. We're going to have Mr. Brooks Rowland of Scrum Sports, Mr. Dan Harajan here, Associate Editor and Chief of Scrum Sports, and also the Stash from Shooter and Stash. And then, of course, your phone calls, because I want to hear from you tonight. 727-255-0391. It's 0391. Only one game away. Of course, there would be some in the Bay Area that would say, we would like you to lose. And I say, going back to Herman Edwards, you win to play the game. And this team the other night absolutely won to play the game. They won the game 6-3. Great effort by them. So we'll be talking to all these guys. We'll also have our Lightning insider, Mr. Travis Faley of Rocket Sports and Entertainment, and Mr. Leo Haggerty, the legend himself, former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions. It's Sports Mag. Game is at 8 o'clock. So without further ado, let's go ahead. We'll start off with Brooks Rowland of Scrum Sports. Big time fan of him. Been a fan of him since he was at 98.7, the fan. I remember and always loved his work. Let's go ahead and start out with him. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television, as Game 4 is only less than an hour away, one game away from the Tampa Bay Lightning repeating as Stanley Cup champs. Welcome to the evolution.
Well, thank you for having me up here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to tonight's game as well, and maybe we'll actually get to see things end in early, and much earlier than some people around here might want to see. I know there's a few that wouldn't mind seeing them come back and win on home ice, but I say, why chance it? Why risk letting a team back in the series when you're up 3-0, you got your foot on their throat? Squeeze on it harder, step on it. Just end it now. Don't let them back into it. Don't let them breathe. You've already got them on the ropes. Give them that one last nice solid haymaker right to the jaw, and just take them down from there. Don't even risk it. I've had a couple people as well on social media say, it'd be great if they win tonight, but we wouldn't mind seeing them come back to Tampa for a Game 5. Don't risk it. End it tonight. Get it over with. Be only the second team of the salary cap era to say that you've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. And why not? And why not say that you can do it by way of a sweep? That would make it even better, if you ask me.
No, I absolutely agree with that. One of the most dominating teams in NHL history, and they can absolutely put their mark on that if they defeat the Canadiens tonight. And it starts out with a fast start. Want to ask you really quick, what are your impressions of this overall postseason for this Lightning club?
I think my biggest takeaway is what's really impressive about them, and this goes back to last season's playoffs in the bubble. This was a team that has learned some hard lessons over the years. I mean, they came oh so close to winning it in 2015, falling in 6 games to the Blackhawks in the Cup final. They made a couple more trips to the Eastern Conference final and lost in Game 7 in 2016 and 18. And then, I hate to bring up an old point, but it's still something that's, to me, has been the biggest lesson of all, was the 2019 sweep against Columbus. That was a real crossroads moment for the Lightning as a franchise, where they had to look in the mirror and they could have said, we can either kind of mope about it and be sad about it and let it get to our heads, or maybe we can learn from it. Maybe we can tweak the roster a little bit, figure out what we can do to put us over the top. And sure enough, Julien Brisebois made some great moves that particular offseason of 2019, bringing in Kevin Shattenkirk and Pat Maroon, and even Luke Shen, and then later in the year Zach Bogosian before the pandemic happened and the shutdown occurred. But I think the biggest takeaway is how they've evolved into a team that can beat you in so many different ways. This is a team that you look last series, the semifinal against the Islanders. Mm-hmm. They beat the Islanders 8-0 in Game 5, and then proceeded to shut them out 1-0 in Game 7. You name a way that they can play hockey. You want to play run and gun with the Lightning? Good luck with that. They've got the big guns that can go goal for goal with you. You want to try and play a simple shutdown, defensive style game where everybody's playing, to not really. I guess you could say where they're playing not to make mistakes. Play a simple style that's really something that you might see when you're playing on the road. Well, guess what? The Lightning can do that as well. And when they get a lead, they're not necessarily trying to go up 7-1 when they're up 4-1. Mm-hmm. When they get up 3-1, 4-1, they're playing to keep that lead. That's been the biggest difference, I think, in this season and last postseason versus playoffs prior and even regular seasons prior as well, where the team was basically trying to outscore their problems. But, now once they get a lead, they know how to shut it down. They know how to keep it simple. And other than 2 games this postseason, game 3 against Florida in the first round and game 6 against the Islanders in the semifinal, those are the only 2 times where they've really blown a third period lead and ended up losing in that situation. So I think that this is just a team that's really evolved into one that is known for their offense, but they can beat you in so many different ways. And that's been the biggest difference.
All right, let's add to this little party, if you will. Let's go ahead and go out to Mr. Dan Harajan here of Scrum Sports, and let's go out to the stash himself of We the Thunder, right? We the Thunder podcast. I think he's on. Hold on a sec here. Is his mic on? His mic is not on, so I don't know what's going on.
I had the thunder rolling in while you guys were talking, so I didn't want to make sure we didn't distract from the show, but that's just a good sign, right?
Yes, it absolutely is a good sign. Of course, all eyes right now, not only on game 4 at this point, guys, but also on Tropical Storm Elsa. We'll see most likely the impact of that tomorrow. Of course, we got a game 4 tonight. Let's go back to game 3 here. They start out, look, this Lightning team has been very good when they start out 15-2 when they score first in the postseason. So your impressions, Dan, here of this start. First, Ruda, who couldn't score at all, but now it seems like he's getting a knack of it. And then it's Hedman.
Well, and their defense, had not been scoring in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. But I just want to add to Brooks's point about the Lightning. I think it's critical, especially when you think about those game 7s in the Eastern Conference Final in 16 and in 18. They lost, if I'm not mistaken, 1-0 in 16 and 2-0 in 18. They could not play those low-scoring, defensive, heavy games. They can now. And also to Brooks's point, that Columbus sweep in 2019, I think that was the wake-up call for this group, this core group of players, because we've seen since that last loss in that sweep, they haven't lost 2 consecutive games in the playoffs since that time over last year and this year. And I think that's a testament to what the guys, the players in the locker room, what they took from that Columbus sweep.
Yeah, I mean, even we talked about this stat the other night where Cooper basically said in so many words, Kucherov grew up and this team grew up, and getting off to a fast start basically does 2 things. Not only energizes your team, but also takes the crowd out of it. Although it's only 3,500, they were making some noise the other night when it was 2-1, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of keep almost belaboring this point, these guys are right. It's all about the way these guys play defense now. And Coop has said it time and time again. It's more about the ones you don't let in than the ones that you put in yourself. And that simple change in mentality, I think, is what turned this team around. And so, yeah, they can get out to that lead early, and you're screwed if you're playing this Lightning team and you give up an early 2-goal lead in the first period. It's hard to come back from that in any fashion. If you want to play 5-on-5 hockey, the Lightning have proven everyone wrong coming into the series, and really the last series when they said, "Oh, if you keep the Lightning out of off the power play, they can't beat you." Well, we went against the least penalized team in the NHL, and we beat them at 5-on-5 hockey just as well as we did in the power play. And the same things happened in this series too. And the biggest thing is that I saw earlier today that Lightning are 9-0 in goals directly off of turnovers versus Montreal. Montreal has scored 1 goal directly off turnover, a turnover chance, breakaway opportunities, and the Lightning are 9, and they had only allowed like 10 or 11 in the other 3 series. So that's the thing that hurts every team when you play this Lightning team is they can play good defense, they play heavy in their own zone, they keep everything on the outside. You hear 5 on the die from this team relentlessly as well. That's the way they like to play in their own zone. They keep everything to the outside, and then as soon as you make a mistake, you're toast.
Yeah, pretty much. And Brooks, it goes back to taking care of the puck. And when Montreal doesn't do that, it leads to, the 2-1 breaks, which is absolutely beautiful. The outlet pass by Cernak to Palat. Palat being patient with it, passes it over to Kucherov. Kucherov with the backhand is nearly unstoppable at that point, but it starts with turnovers, especially when Montreal turns over the puck. The Lightning are going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, the Lightning have had the skill to take advantage of mistakes by the opposition for years. It's also just been a matter of their end of limiting their own mistakes, which, and turnovers are going to happen from time to time in hockey games. Even if the games where you are managing the puck well enough and you are taking care of it, sometimes the mistakes happen. Sometimes, you might get hemmed in in your own end for a little while. And we saw it happen in Game 2 of the Lightning. I mean, frankly, we in Game 1, the Lightning pretty much dominated. It was a 5-1 final. It really probably could have been 8-0, but it was one of those games where they were dominant. But I think everybody knew that Game 2, Montreal was going to come out a little more focused, a little more determined. I think it was kind of a wake-up call for them as well. And then you saw them in Game 2 really brought their A game. I mean, they were putting the Lightning deep in their own zone for stretches at a time, long shifts in the Lightning's end. The Lightning defensemen were committing turnovers as well. But that's where having the best goalie in the world, Andrei Vasilevskiy, makes all the difference. Because when you've got that guy in your crease, it really gives you a peace of mind. It really gives you that sense of, hey, even if we make a mistake, he's gonna cover it up. And Vasilevskiy has done a lot of that over the years. Even before these last two playoffs where the Lightning have been much better defensively, he's been a guy that they know can help mask those issues when they do pop up. And throughout this series, he's been even better. I mean, he was the difference. He was the reason why they won in Game 2, and it really helped boost the Lightning because Montreal gave the Bolts their best shot in Game 2. I mean, we could easily say that Game 4 tonight could be instead of a 3-0 lead, it could be a 2-1 lead. But Vasilevskiy was the difference. And that ended up kind of carrying over into Game 3, where you had a smaller but an equally raucous crowd, I think, in the Bell Center. And they were saying there was 3,500 fans. Let's be real. I think there was about 7,000 based on what they were saying on the NBC broadcast.
Yeah.
And that was a rowdy crowd ready to go. And those two quick goals by Hedman and Ruda just shut it down. I mean, it quieted the crowd. It calmed the Lightning down. They were able to kind of play their game. And even though they allowed the goal by Deneau that made it 2-1, they didn't waver from their game at all. You could tell they were still focused, they were still structured and dialed in, but they still have the ability to make to catch you in transition or catch you off guard with a stretch pass. And usually it's Victor Hedman leading those stretch passes or using those stretch passes. But last game it was Erik Cernak springing Palat and Kucherov for that 2-on-0, and that's just a long list of great plays that Cernak has made in this postseason. I mean, I think right now he's probably playing, the best hockey of his career by far.
I'm telling you right now, I think that's a point. We got Dan Hirajan here on the phone because of the video. Again, you're on the Sports Web Live, getting you ready for Game 4, Lightning versus the Canadiens. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Brooks Rowland of Scrum Sports, Dan Hirajan of Scrum Sports, and of course, the stash of shelves of Shooter and Stash, We the Thunder podcast. With all that being said, do you think that's the big time key here, Dan, is the development of Cernak and, of course, Sergachev defensively? This is why this team is so strong, possibly even better than they were last year.
Oh, without a doubt. The development of Erik Cernak, first of all, right-handed defenseman, they don't grow on trees.
Right.
So when you have a young, big, physical, right-handed, and you know what? When he first came on, when they first got him in the trade for Ben Bishop, we saw a lot of his defensive abilities, and we saw his size and his physicality.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the way he jumps in on the offense now. How many times do we see him circling behind the net? And that's that addition to his game and to a certain extent, Ruda, although Ruda's a little more mindful of staying at the point. But I think that both him and we all know Sergachev was an offensive defenseman when he came to the team in the trade with Montreal.
Sure.
But I love the way he's developed his defensive abilities now. So I love these two guys, two young defensemen. And I'll tell you, I think Sergachev is going to be 3 to 4 years now. He's going to be a perennial Norris Trophy finalist.
Do you think, Stash, that Victor Hedman, of course, has helped this development out with Cernak and, of course, Sergachev? Because when Dan, when he makes that comparison with Sergachev being an offensive guy, offensive defenseman, I feel like that's kind of what Hedman came into the league, and now he's overall all around a great defenseman. Do you think Hedman has definitely helped out with that development with these young defensemen?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't. You look at his development, and I think I just watched again an interview with him from Men and Blazers. I think it was last season that went down, and he talked about how he came in the league and he was such a high prospect, and people expected so much of him, and he really took 2 or 3 years to really find his game. I mean, those of us that have been here, fans remember he came in, number 2 overall, highly touted. We were expecting so much, and a lot of the things that people don't realize is how many games it takes. I mean, they say about 5 to 6 seasons on average for a defenseman to really hit his prime in the NHL and figure it out. And eventually, Hedman actually got ahead of that mark, really. You know what I mean? And once he had that breakout season, what better mentor could you have for a young defenseman coming into this league looking to play, a two-way hockey and have that impact all over the ice than Victor Hedman? I think Sergachev is coming a little bit of a different way with his physical play. Even Hedman admits he's not the physical guy that's going to go in there. If he's making contact, he's going to make a play on the puck, turn the puck over to get the possession. Sergachev goes in there and displays. Now he doesn't care. He goes to be that physical presence, and then he likes to get up there on the blue line and kind of do what he can do. I see Cernak a bit more like Hedman, the way he plays two-way games. He likes on his end of the zone. But with McDonough out there, that pairing gives John Cooper an immense amount of ability to flex his defense. I mean, you basically have the best defenseman in the world, not on your top D-line pairing, right? Because technically, Cernak and McDonough is your top D-line pairing. So that also gives you the flexibility to basically put Hedman out there, still log the most minutes out of anybody in the playoffs, but where Cooper cherry picks and chooses to put him out there and match him up, he gets to play on the PK, on the PP, and everything else. And so, absolutely, you can't understate the amount of impact the development of guys like Cernak and Sergachev have had on this team. And also, you can't not talk about Big Mac and McDonough and what he's done as really our core anchor on that blue line, playing the defensive hockey. And even he has great eyes and he's always making passes up the ice to make the outlets. So, I mean, we got 6 guys on that blue line that are just incredible. And to me, I think that's the biggest difference in this series. They're talking about Montreal's big 4, but we got a big 6.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you add Savard to that mix there, Brooks. And, John Romano of the Tampa Bay Times was talking about it. This team has gotten better. Is it the reason why the youth, the development of the young defenseman, and then adding a Savard at the deadline, which you look at it, the way he's playing, it's definitely a still.
Yeah, the thing with Savard is it took him a little bit of time to get going. Usually with trade deadline acquisitions, they can be there. You don't always see them pay off right away because they're always late in the season. There's usually a bit of an adjustment period for the player with their team. And I think we saw that really with Savard's case as well. But as the playoffs have gone on, I think he's gotten better and better. And he's a guy that, that I think really shows the embarrassment of riches I think that the Lightning have on their blue line right now. I mean, Stash said it himself. You've got really a big 6 because I think Mikhail Sergachev would be a top pairing guy on the majority of teams in the NHL. David Savard's a second pairing guy on a lot of teams as well. And then you look at McDonough. I think McDonough would be a top pairing guy on a bunch of other NHL teams. Cernak would probably be a top pairing guy on a handful of teams as well. I mean, but you've got every guy on that blue line slotted into a particular role where they fit in nicely. We know John Cooper loves that lefty-righty divide on the blue line, and he's got that with each of his pairings right now. And it even goes back to last year. Last year they had a stacked group on the blue line as well when they had Bogosian and Shattenkirk on there. And even when Luke Schenn has had to play in these playoffs, he's played really well. And he's not a guy that is ever going to be known for his offensive ability, but we saw him chip in a goal earlier in the postseason. He's a guy that may not necessarily be known for being fleet of foot, but he's one of those guys that provides some leadership, provides a good physical presence, because everybody knows that the regular season and the playoffs are two completely different things. And you need guys that not only can get you to the playoffs, but there's a saying that you also need guys that can get you through the playoffs. And I've always felt like you got to have a good blend of that on your roster. And Julian Brisebois has actually done a great job, I think, of that over the last couple of years. Like I mentioned, the Maroon signing earlier, the Goodrow and Coleman trades, those are the kinds of guys that can get you through the playoffs as well. And I mean, overall, it's, we're looking at a team that is really humming on all cylinders right now. And I think it's such a focused, dialed in group. I think that they finally broke through with that cup win in the bubble last season. And I think that they seem like they enjoyed it so much, the celebration, even with it being limited by COVID-19 and the pandemic and, not having as many people around. But you got to figure that there's a little bit of a motivation factor to want to win it, when with fans in the building, like we've seen in Amalie Arena, there's a motivation even to, go on the road, obviously, and win it and, close the series out tonight. Because just imagine, going in there, closing out in front of that crowd, which is going to be a rowdy group again, and just to have the chance to be only the second team in NHL history to actually win the cup in Montreal. I think that part of that's got to be a motivating factor as well, I believe.
I mean, it really does. And we'll get to those comments from the mayor herself, who would like the Lightning to do something. But this is what John Cooper had to stay here, Dan and Stash and Brooks. When they started getting rewarded for it, they didn't cheat. They didn't say, okay, we're done. That's fine. Let's go back to the way it was. No, the individual accolades got pushed to the side. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. And that kind of basically describes this team. You talked about the blue line. You talked about all the superstars on this team, but it certainly seems like they're more selfless than selfish, right? Stash?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you guys have watched that Quest for the Stanley Cup on ESPN Plus. I watched it last season. I got caught up this season. It's amazing because it does get a lot of those locker room things. I think that came from an interview that was also on that, maybe somewhere else. But that's what Coop talks about, is the buy-in from these guys. And people talk about this as a talented roster, and I even saw it again today. Oh, I could win a Stanley Cup with that roster. Well, if that's the case, why didn't Coop win it in 16 and 17 and 18 and 19? You know what I'm saying? Like, why hasn't he won it every single season? Because it's not like this team hasn't been uber talented and stacked with great players since he's got here. It's just you got to find that right mentality. You got to find that right trigger to get these guys to finally all buy in as a group. And once they figured that out last season, you can see it now. And even going through the regular season, you could tell, man, it was a grind for these guys. It wasn't probably the funnest season that they've had coming back so quickly after bubble and everything else. And, there was a lot that they had to deal with, the adversity, not having Cooch and the unknown, There were some other injuries on the blue line. Vasi was a little banged up. And yet these guys still believed in the process. They knew if they could just get in and get in relatively healthy, that's whenever they could go to work, do their business that they learned last season. And you see it up and down that lineup. These guys don't play for themselves. They play for the guy next to them and the guy behind them.
Dan, he also says, and this would be Cooper, it's easy to throw out, we're winners, we work hard and all that stuff. But let's be honest, we changed the makeup of our team. We did that. We got a little grittier. Then the skill guys changed their game as well to a winning formula, a winning way to play. Go ahead and kind of break that down a little bit, kind of get into more of what he's talking about there. They look like they did change their team to a certain degree, the way they're playing, right?
Just to jump on Stash's point, Cooper got the players to buy in because it wasn't all. Yes, they've had a lot of success from 2015 to now. The last 5-6 seasons they've been arguably the best team in the league. Clearly, they have talent, but get the players to play the style of game that's in front of them. Because how many times in the past did we see this team go up 2-0, maybe 3-1 by midway point of the second period, and they couldn't hold that lead.
Sure.
And so that that I'm sure Cooper and the coaching staff were preaching, to be steadfast on defense, but it didn't materialize. But it's not just because that every year the team changes. That the addition, we can look at the additions of Goodrow and Coleman as a focal point, because that to me was one of the triggers in the Lightning being able to, and Cooper and the coaching staff to be able to roll out 4 lines during the playoffs last year and this year. He hasn't changed. In fact, look at the fourth liners, Maroon and Johnson, and I know he flipped
Colton,
but Colton for most of the playoffs they were getting more than the usual ice time that fourth liners see in the playoffs, and I think that bodes well for it just defines the confidence that Cooper has, and it's a circle, because then look how well they're playing, and he can roll. I think it gives Cooper the confidence to roll out any one of his lines against any of the opposing lines.
Yeah.
When they're not at home and they don't have last change. I think all of that is what we're seeing. We're seeing now the benefit of all that over the last few years.
We talk about, and we're on the Sports Web here, the Evolution, getting you ready for Game 4 versus the Montreal Canadiens. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Brooks Rowland of Scrum Sports, Dan Hirajon of Scrum Sports, and of course the stash of Shooter and Stash here, which, look, if the Lightning take care of business tonight, that show is going to be packed up. We the Thunder, their great podcast, their post-game edition that they're going to have. But, we talk about a coach and his relationships with players. He's able to do that. He's able to get them to buy in. But what about the adjustments here, Brooks? Especially getting a guy like a Tyler Johnson, putting him in there, inserting him instead of playing, the wing position, playing the center position. And sure enough, 2 goals in Game 3 versus the Canadiens.
Well, I mean, he's a guy that you can tell is a natural center. I mean, he when they've had to put him on the wing, he's not. I don't think he's quite as effective on the wing, even though he's a guy that has tremendous speed, has a great shot. I think those are his 2 biggest assets right there, are his speed and his shot. But we've seen him at times play up and down the lineup over the last few years, and we've seen him play on the second line, the first, the third. This year, mostly on the fourth. But we've also seen him play at wing and at center. But in these playoffs, we've seen him really, really step up his game, especially in the last game with the 2 goals that he had. But throughout the playoffs, we've seen glimpses of 2015 Tyler Johnson. I mean, not quite up to that level, but we've seen some glimpses of it where he's come up with some big-time goals in situations where they've really, really needed some timely scoring. And I think that it's good to see him, finally put it all together once again in these playoffs, because, we saw him during the regular season struggle to find the back of the net. We saw him, even though he was playing well enough on that fourth line, even though he wasn't filling the net, it was like he was still producing. He was still creating some chances out there. And I think pairing him with another guy in Ross Colton that has speed, as well as a bigger guy in Pat Maroon, who kind of complements those 2 very, very well, it's made for a very effective fourth line. And it goes back to what Dan was saying about buying in. It's really all about, you can have the most talented team, in the history of the league. I mean, you can have a really super talented group, and which the Lightning do have. But in the end, it doesn't matter if those guys don't buy in. And if you can get your entire group just to buy into what you're selling, that's what it really, really comes down to. You don't even necessarily have to have a team that's just completely stacked top to bottom with skilled players and have a blue line that's, stacked from the number 1 guy to the number 6 defenseman. You don't necessarily have to have a team that's loaded top to bottom, but if you can get that buy-in, it makes all the difference. And then when you throw in the talent level that this team has, and then you throw that in along with the fact that they're all buying in 100%, that makes all the difference in the world. And I mean, it's really been something to watch, even when they've hit a couple bumps in the road, especially in that Islanders series, which was tough and which was physical. They fought through it. They battled through it. They didn't get away from their structure. They kept playing their style no matter what happened. Eventually, they prevailed in that series. I mean, look, and like I mentioned earlier, with the different ways that they've won. I mean, they won that series with a shorthanded goal from Yanni Gourde. That was the only goal of the game. So, I mean, this is a team that will beat you so many different ways. And plus, you throw in the fact that it's a loaded group that has completely bought in to what John Cooper is selling. And he even had to tweak the message last year before the pandemic started. They got off to a little bit of a rocky start the first couple months of the 2019-20 season. They finally started to turn it around once they figured out that they had to kind of change how they play. They really had to change their mindset. Instead of going for that 5th goal when they're up 4-1, when they go up 3-1 or 4-1, it's okay to be content with just playing defense, and kind of sitting on that lead and maybe striking if a counterattacking situation presents itself and you can pounce on a turnover. But don't try to force another goal, because if you're trying too hard to get another goal when you're up 5-1, guess what? That's when your 5-1 lead turns into a 5-3 lead. We saw that happen with this team many times up until last season. About around Christmas time was when it finally clicked for them. I remember they went on a huge roll. I think they won around, I'd have to double check it, but it was something in the neighborhood of 23 out of 26 games between Christmas and the end of January. I mean, they went on a roll about a month before the season got shut down due to COVID. So, I mean, this is a team that has adapted. They've completely bought in, and you can really see it just in the way they play night in and night out.
Yeah, Stash, talk about Johnson, because much has been made of him being put on waivers and kind of lost a step, if you will. But it's nice to see him playing well to give this team another weapon, another player on a line where you don't expect it. You look at 3rd and 4th lines, they're supposed to be throwaways, but not for this team. So most likely at the end of the day, at the end of this series, if the Lightning end it tonight, more than likely they're going to lose Johnson to the expansion draft, right? In your opinion?
I mean, yeah, I think that's a consensus. I mean, talk about a swan song, right? For a guy who played his entire career here, started in the AHL with Coop, with Killer, with Cooch, and how, Coop has talked about it so many times since he's got here, the kind of bond he has from player and coach with those guys and the journey they've all taken together. And I mean, he was getting misty at his press conference after last game, kind of talking about Tyler. You could even say Cooch. To me, for who he is in the Russian, he looked a little bit emotional when they asked him about Johnson as well. And it's just a great thing, that guy, to go through what he went through in the offseason and to hear what he heard and have to be put on waivers and make all those concessions again for the only team he's played for, the only professional coach he's had, and then to still be a professional about it, to still come back and give everything he had all season long. And definitely more than one guy on the show is pretty critical of Tyler Johnson throughout this entire season, the regular season. And we had our way with him on social media for sure many times. And yet the guy just came to work, did his job, waited for his opportunity. And when the time was right, he and Patty Maroon and Roscoe on that 4th line have been a catalyst so many times for this team to, like Dan was saying, to roll that 4th line, and to really give them that same puck possession. And Pat Maroon, I think, is very underrated with his hands around the net. I myself on We the Thunder was pretty critical when the Lightning re-signed him this season, thinking, hey, he did his mojo last season. He brought what the spark he needed. Maybe that $1 million could go somewhere else, or 1.1 whatever it was. It's not a lot. And now it's definitely worth it. I think 1.8. Now it's definitely worth it because you see, again, what he's done for this team. And him and Johnson and Roscoe on that fourth line, you just can't say enough how much that gives, to this team and being able to put talent like Tyler Johnson on the fourth line in the playoffs and how big he continues to come up time and time again when you put him in these situations.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. Dan, let's go out to you here. How much of an impact has Johnson made? And you talk about Pat Maroon, a veteran guy like that. He's trying to win the natural hat trick here, 3 Stanley Cups in a row. That's something.
The Pat trick.
Yeah, that is something. I mean, but let's just circle back to Johnson. Yes, I'll admit I was very critical of Tyler Johnson, but if you read the piece that I wrote about Tyler Johnson, the criticism I was directing was actually at Cooper because of all the things that Stash said, because no player in the Lightning organization has played more games for Cooper than Tyler Johnson. I thought that it was a blind spot for Cooper because early in this season, this truncated season, he had Johnson on that second line when Johnson wasn't playing like a top 6 forward. And the piece I wrote was criticizing the loyalty that Cooper was showing to Johnson, where he doesn't show some other people. And again, I get it. I mean, it's human nature.
Sure.
Because Tyler has played for him for a long time. But I'll be the first one to admit that I take my hat off to the performance that Tyler Johnson has had during these playoffs, especially in the last 2 rounds. In the first couple rounds, he was playing well. He seemed like he was skating well, but I would still see some of the things where he was lagging, going back on defense a little bit. That really, I took exception to in the piece. But he has really brought, as Brooks said, the 2015 Tyler Johnson. I don't think many people knew had the Lightning won in 2015 against Chicago, Tyler Johnson would have been your Conn Smythe Award.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Without that wrist injury, which I still, once again, Lightning fans don't cry about this crap. We didn't bring up the salary cap and we lost. And there was some murmurs about it being a bit of a cheap shot, which I think it still was a little bit of a cheap shot on that slash. So, yeah, that totally derailed that season. And you're right. He would have been the Conn Smythe winner for that series.
Brooks, agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he was the Lightning's MVP throughout that playoff run, and I still maintain to this day that if Johnson hadn't have been injured and if Ben Bishop hadn't have been injured as well, I think the Lightning would have come away with a cup that year. But it's water under the bridge. It was one of those things where injuries happen, you live and learn from it, and you move on. And I think that in the end, if even if Johnson's not on this roster next season, I think that his legacy in Lightning history will still be secure with the combination of that 2015 run and as well as what he's done so far in these playoffs. Now, as to what happens in the expansion draft, I mean, I know, he's been kind of touted as the guy that Seattle would take. I'm a little more skeptical of it just because of his contract, his cap hit. And if I'm in Seattle's position, I would probably be looking at the Lightning's roster and saying, okay, you want me to take Tyler Johnson? Well, he's got a $5 million cap hit for, another, let me double check the old reliable cap friendly here. Another 2 years that he's got, another 3 years. It's 3 years that he has another, $5 million a year cap hit. So if I'm the Seattle Kraken, I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, well, if you really want me to take that off your hands, you got to sweeten the pot up a little bit. You got to give me a little something extra. And I'm not so sure that the Lightning should be engaging in a side deal because you got to figure with the salary cap being flat for probably another couple of years or so. You have to also look at the expansion draft and the fact that what it boils down to, you're only losing one player. You only need to lose one player.
Yes.
Don't twist yourself into a pretzel trying to, give up a prospect, a high draft pick, maybe a roster player as well, to just for them to entice them to take one guy. You'd end up losing 3 or 4 assets instead. And that's how teams got into trouble in the last expansion draft with Vegas. They kind of tied themselves into knots trying to protect certain guys, gave up a couple of extra players each. And, there's a handful of teams that come to mind, like Minnesota, Anaheim, Florida, especially Columbus, that ended up giving up extra assets. And those guys ended up being big time contributors to the most successful expansion franchise in the history of North American pro sports. So I say in the Lightning's case here, don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. I wouldn't really engage in a side deal just to try and entice them to take Johnson. Maybe you entice them to stay away from, say, a younger guy like Calfoot or somebody like that.
Yeah.
You might just have to suck it up and, swallow your pride and lose somebody that maybe otherwise you wouldn't lose. But, that's the reality of the situation.
It really is. And I would be scared, guys, to lose Stash here. A player like a Yanni Gourde. I mean, that would be a player I think you would, if you're going to start an expansion team with, that's the type of player. Look, he's not overly flashy. He's not overly fast. He just gets it done with hustle and heart. I mean, he has some speed. He has some skill to him. And it seems like he's only getting better, right?
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask about Yanni Gourde, 100% honest, because people talk about overpaid and this and that. And I like what he does, and I like what he brings to the team. I love he has the attitude, but he's over $5 million a year cap hit too, and he doesn't produce. And you're saying, where he plays in his role, and he's on the third line, and if he could move up, if he could, but I've seen what he does. Like, I don't know. For me, the jury's still out on that. And to me, that's a guy that absolutely, if they want to build a franchise around him, that sounds like a great opportunity for the Lightning to move that and still be able to protect some of these guys that play up and down the line with the play minutes all throughout. And I'm not, and again, I guess this comes from a perspective of how long you watch this team and who you think has more impact, you know what I mean? And who can give you better minutes and more minutes throughout the night. And I'm not saying that Yanni isn't a great player. Yanni has a lot of upside to him. And again, like I say, I like where he drives that third line. He's the engine of that third line. I just think that he has a bit of a high cap hit. I felt like that was and I love you deal, honestly, instead of a, hey man, you still got a little bit more to prove in the NHL deal. And if you talk about fat contracts, I think that's kind of a fat contract for the Lightning.
Where do you stand here, Dan, on Yanni Gourde and a possible? I'll throw out another player, Alex Killorn. Do we know, guys, if he's going to play in this game or not? And if he has a high cap hit, right? So you're losing, somewhat. You don't want to necessarily lose him, but that's the type of player also. So where do you stand here, Dan, on a Yanni Gourde and Alex Killorn?
Well, as far as Yanni Gourde, the thing about Yanni Gourde, his cap hit might be a little bit high. I think he's 5.5 if memory serves. But the thing that if I'm looking at Yanni Gourde and Tyler Johnson, the thing I can say without any hesitation is that Yanni Gourde gives the team 100% every shift. And I know it sounds like hyperbole, but clearly over the last couple seasons, Johnson had not. The thing I like about Johnson's increased performance these last 2 rounds of the playoffs is that I think that there are at least a dozen GMs out there kicking themselves for not picking him up when he was on waivers. Yes, he's got a $5 million cap hit, but the way he's playing now, like Brooks said, is shades of 2015. And it was that season that pretty much led to the fact that he's got this $5 million cap hit. I see the team protecting Yanni Gourde because he makes everybody around him, and you can line him up with anybody, and he'll make that line good. I promise you that. Now, as far as Killorn, I'm also in agreement with Brooks that I don't think Seattle's going to take Tyler Johnson, and I don't think the Lightning should sweeten that deal because of Johnson's increase in performance here in the playoffs. I think his trading him might be just a little bit easier than it was 6 months ago or before the trading deadline or even last off season. But I think ultimately, it's Palat or Killorn that they're going to end up losing to the expansion Seattle Kraken. And if I'm Ron Francis, the GM of Seattle, I'm taking Killorn because he's got a 4.5 cap hit or thereabouts.
Okay.
And
4.5.
And he's a leader. He's a leader in that locker room.
Right.
He's a leader in this team. And one thing expansion teams need is a certified leader on the ice. And I think that they'll take. I think Killorn's the guy that they're going to take.
Stash is shaking his head here. Stash, go ahead.
I just don't understand how you give up a bona fide leader like that in your locker room. I mean, he's tied for second in goals in the playoffs here, and he was leading the team in points last playoff season. I mean, that's the kind of guy that wants to retire here. That's a guy. He's only got 4.5 for 2 more years, and he'll take a deal to stay here and be your leader in the locker room and to stay and retire in Tampa Bay. I think Andre Palat is that guy, at 5.3 with only 1 more deal and an opportunity for a trade and sign for maybe a little bit less and still be a top 6 guy. I mean, Coop has nothing but effusive praise for that guy and how he's the glue for that top line. But again, it's tough. We're sitting here talking about who we think, and a lot of that has to do with the way we look at the game personally, what we've watched our whole lives as hockey fans, as analysts, and everything else. And so, personally, if I'm building a locker room, I want a leader kind of guy. I want to make sure that a guy like Alex Killorn, who's engaged in the community, engaged in the fan base, I want to make sure a guy like that stays around because that's what this franchise is kind of built around. You know what I mean? And Yanni Gourde is a huge fan favorite too. So that's what makes it hard. These guys have been around so long and they do engage in the community so well, and they are part of this community. It is hard for us to sit back and look at it that way and say, all right, what really is the best move? Because this team's so loaded with talent to come up and fill whoever has to go through salary cap or through this expansion draft. The core of this team's still going to be here. The general's still going to be behind the bench, and this team is still going to be really, really good next season.
All right, we got some controversy. We'll get back to how good this team is compared to last year in a moment, but we had some comments. We also got Leo Haggerty on here. So, Leo, I want you to stand by, listen to these comments. If you guys can hear, I'm going to go ahead and put all you guys right now into the lobby. We're going to go out to Mayor Castor's comments on what she thinks the Tampa Bay Lightning should do here in Game 4 on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and mute you here because I know how you feel about it already here on the Sports Web live on the Notoriety Sports Network, and I love St. Pete. Stand by. All right, here we go.
Here's what we would like. What we would like is for the Lightning to take it a little bit easy, to give the Canadians just the smallest break, allow them to win one at home, and then bring it back to the Amalie Arena for the final and the winning of the Stanley Cup. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but they are playing some amazing, amazing hockey.
So then, again, welcome back to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. We'll get the Stash on. We'll get Brooks on. We'll go out to our phone lines here. We got the legend himself, Leo Haggerty. Of course, Dan Harajan, Associate Editor-in-Chief of Scrum Sports. I got to go out to Leo here really quick. Your thoughts, because you were shaking your head. I saw everybody here shaking their heads. The mayor's coming out and going, you know what? We want you to lose this game. Let the team back in it. Oh, by the way, they came back from a 3-1 deficit in one of their playoff series. But it's okay. Lose, give them the momentum because we want you to win it at home. Leo, your thoughts?
John Cooper had an interesting commentary on that yesterday. He said, it's a matter of when, not where.
Okay.
And Peter, you never, ever, ever give up a victory. I mean, I've seen way too many times being a Philadelphia Flyers fan back in the day, right before the New York Islanders got that dynasty. Flyers went up 3-0. Chico Respadhali got the 3-3 2 years in a row. So when you get a chance to close a team out, you close the team out. Mayor, hey, no, hell no. Don't give it up.
Yeah, your thoughts on right. Who's we? Exactly. Go ahead, Stash. Go for it.
No, I mean, that's my only comment. Who is we? Because it ain't me. That's all I got to say.
Dan, go ahead, and then I'll go to Brooks. Dan, what your thoughts on those comments?
I think it was idiotic. And what John Cooper and Stamkos over the last couple of days have said this a couple of times. The fourth game in any playoff series is the hardest game to win.
Right.
For anyone to think that even the team as talented as the Lightning can throw a game intentionally only to win the next one.
Right.
It's idiotic.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Brooks.
It's the comments that were made were, to me, it was just silly. It's like, what, because when you're in that position, you're the representative of your city. When you're a mayor, you're kind of the face of the city, basically. And to make public comments like that, I mean, I think deep down inside, I mean, we'd all love to see the Lightning, I think, win the cup at Amalie Arena in front of a packed house, especially a year after where they won it in an empty arena almost 4,000 miles away. You know, that's, you know, I mean, it was great seeing them win that cup, but would it be great to see them win it at home? Yes. But guess what? When you're up 3-0 and you've got a chance to close a team out, you got a chance to put them away, and you got a chance to extend Canada's Stanley Cup drought for another year in Montreal, why put that bad juju out there? Why do it? Just be happy that this team is dominating. They're up 3-0, and root for them to close this thing out. And then guess what? They get another boat parade if that's the case. I mean, last year's boat parade was awesome. It was great.
Yeah.
I had a nice rooftop advantage of it. It was fantastic. I want to see that again. I want, but only this time we're going to, if it happens, it'll be probably even bigger than last year's. So I would say end it now, close it out, be done with it. Don't put that bad juju out there about even considering losing one game. Don't even do it. Why bother?
Absolutely. I tell you what, let's get this party more excited with the Lightning Insider here, Mr. Travis Bailey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment. Your thoughts on the mayor's comments of, you know what, hey, Bolts, just kind of not win this game right here. Let the Canadians get back into it so you can win it in Game 5. Welcome to the Evolution.
You never take your foot off the neck, Pete. You never take your foot off the neck. And I have to tell you, I am so excited right now, not only to be on with the Stash, but to be on with my friend Brooks Rowland, who's been in this industry for a hell of a long time. He does a fantastic job covering the Lightning. See him in the hallway every once in a while. But, hey, man, good to see you. I hope your family's doing well. And glad to have you today on, Peter Blake, Sports Web, I Love St. Pete, Notoriety Sports Network. Love having you on, Brooks. You bring that.
Hey,
bring it
glad
down.
to be on, my friend. Glad to see you again as well.
I think this guy's the most talented man in the quad right here, Pete. I have to tell you.
You're way too kind. You're too kind.
Well, you got the playoff beard going too, so I like your beard a little bit more than Grandpa Munster over there to the top, Mr.
Hey, here's what I think about that. Ready? Go. Right there.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Hey, I don't know if you guys saw that, but what Montreal had 26 turnovers / giveaways in the last game. Let me pull up my stats here real quick, guys. Been dealing with, sorry for so late, but I was dealing with the rain and a bunch of other lunacy. But yeah, the Lightning had more shots on goal. Montreal. Yeah. What do we have? You know what I always say. Sorry, guys, I'm fumbling. I've been going crazy the last few minutes. The Lightning, what do we say, Pete? If you control the circle, you control the game. And granted, it was only by 1 percentage point. The Lightning won from the circle, 51-49. They had more blocks in the game with 13. They had more hits with 46-38. The biggest one, though, guys, and I know Brooks would agree, 26 giveaways for Montreal to 15 for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that truly tells the story of Game 3, in my opinion.
It really does. And I think also what tells the story about this series, guys, and we're on with Brooks Rowland of Scrum Sports. You got the Stash of Shooter and Stash, Travis Feely of Rocket Sports and Entertainment, Dan Harrison of Scrum Sports, and, of course, the legend himself, Mr. Leo Haggerty, former coach, scout, and now media member of Night Sports Productions, It's Sports Mag. And I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. What we have noticed is when you get traffic in front of Carey Price, it seems like he's not immune to shots from the outside and giving up those big goals. And I think that's been also the Lightning strategy here, Brooks, on how the Lightning have approached this from a shooter standpoint and from an offensive standpoint on how to attack Price, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily just the Lightning have never been one of those teams that's just going to take shots from all sorts of angles. I mean, they're not Carolina. Carolina, who the Lightning beat in 5 games in the second round, that's a team that will shoot the puck from anywhere at any time. The Lightning aren't that way, but they're a team that, they've got obviously they've got the talent to finish, and they've got the group that, they've always been the type that they might never lead the league in shots on goal per game, but the quality is usually there. They're all about looking for those quality opportunities, and and they've been able to really capitalize on those chances when they get them. Now, I would say as well, you can make a case that that Carey Price has not been his best in this series at all. I would say he's not necessarily been bad, but he also he's not really been a reason why they've been, in the last 2 games. He's a guy that's, throughout the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, he was very, very good when he had to be, but in this round, it hasn't quite worked out that way for Montreal. And, and then you look at the other end with Vasilevsky. I mean, my goodness, you look at his numbers have just gotten progressively better and better as these playoffs have gone on. And I think that, tonight's game is going to really boil down to whether or not the Lightning, I think they need to get off to another fast start. I think getting off to that early 2-0 lead was so crucial in Game 3. It really helped quiet that crowd down. It really kind of, helped them get into that mode where they can either shut things down defensively or they can still slowly add on to their lead, which is what they ended up doing. And I think that's going to be another key that they're really going to have to focus on, I think, in order to eventually try and bring the cup home tonight.
All right.
Go ahead, what I see, to follow up on your question to Brooks was, the Lightning don't really camp out very much. And we talked about this earlier in the series of how they're slashing across Price's eyes. So it's not like they're stabilizing right in front and then he's able to move left and right, but they're cutting across. And if you watch Yanni Gordon, you watch some of the other guys, they're jumping right in front of him as the puck is being shot. And just that little time, that millisecond of time where his eyes are off the puck and looking at, jersey numbers is what's really, I think, taking the Lightning are taking advantage of that little glimmer right there. And, the other day they were down, Montreal has only got the lead down to 2 goals. And I never thought that they were even close to really being back in that game. I thought the Lightning thoroughly handed it to them. And, that giveaway number is considerable, but I know the game's getting ready to start, guys. I'm sure you guys want to catch some of the pregame. I'll stop yapping and I'll let Pete wrap this all up. But I love the Lightning tonight. I think John Cooper's going to have this team ready to go. And I do think that the 3,500 number in Montreal is going to play a huge effect, not only in Game 3, but Game 4. Man, it'd be great if they can have their 10,000 that they wanted. But, still sitting on 3,500 from what I've seen. Sort of a shame. And then not letting the Lightning family members come in too. I understand it completely, but man, that sort of stinks for the families. It's like the double bubble going on right now.
If they win tonight, who is the Conn Smythe in your opinion? Who's been the best player in this series?
It's got to be Vazzy.
Okay.
It has to be.
Okay, Travis Bailey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment. Once again, go ahead and promote yourself here, our Lightning Insider on the sports web.
Absolutely. Travis at rocketsports-ent.com, Travis at knac.com, and Travis Bailey Photography. I'm all out there. I'm global, nationwide. Just teasing, obviously. Brooks, who you got in the game tonight? What's your prediction as far as score is concerned?
Score-wise, I'm going to say the Lightning end this by a 3-1 score, and I think Andrei Vasilevsky ends up walking away with the Conn Smythe Trophy because he didn't get the Vezina as I thought he would, so he'll walk away with the Conn Smythe, which is an even better prize.
I agree. It's not about the personal awards with this hockey team, Brooks. It's all about the Stanley Cup. And sorry, Stash, for monopolizing and manipulating the airtime here. I know you're chomping at the bit, so I'll get out of here.
For an hour, brother. It's all good. Yeah,
Brooks,
I've been here
always
for
a
that one,
pleasure.
man.
Got to do lunch one of these days.
Likewise.
All right, we'll all do lunch. Thanks a lot, Travis. It's on you, by the way.
Usually is with you, Pete.
All right, see you, Travis. Get out of here, you jerk. All right, let me go out to the stash. Biggest key to tonight's game prediction and Conn Smythe winner. Go.
I mean, I think the biggest prediction is Vasi. The biggest key to the game is Vasi, and the Conn Smythe winner is Vasi. Because what is this game, guys? This is a potential clinching game, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything other than that, right? I'm just going to say big cat, and we wrap it up. And Lord Stanley's coming home with the boys.
All right, go ahead and promote yourself and that great podcast you got going on with the shooter himself, Shooter and Stash.
Absolutely, man, Pete. It's been a blast once again on the pregame with you here on the Sports Web, on Notoriety Sports Network. I'm the Stash. I'm Shooter on the Stash. You can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us at TalkStash on Twitter, at Shooty Shoots on Twitter. And, of course, after every Lightning playoff game, we do our post-game show, 15 minutes or so, We the Thunder. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. That's what we do. So we're hoping that tonight is our final show, getting ready to go into next season. So it's going to be a huge selly. It's going to be crazy. And don't miss it, man, because it's going to be great.
And I tell you what, if you guys want to send me a link, I'll go ahead and get on and talk a little bit myself. If you guys,
that'd be great, brother.
I appreciate you. The Stash there from Shooter and Stash, We the Thunder podcast show off at the end of the game, post-game edition. Definitely tune in. Thanks a lot for your time here on the Sports Web. All right. All right, Brooks, go ahead and promote yourself, my friend, and then we'll get out to Dan and, of course, Leo.
Well, you can find my work at thescrumsports.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook. But Twitter is at The Scrum Sports. Facebook is The Scrum Sports. Also at The Scrum Sports on Instagram as well. You can find me on Twitter, usually during games, at BrooksRoland82. That's pretty much where I'm going to be found tonight. You can also catch my recap of the game soon after, and hopefully it'll be a championship recap that'll be possibly getting to write tonight. So that's where you can find my work as well as everything with the Scrum Sports.
All right, love it. Thanks a lot for your time once again. Big fan of your work. You always do a great job here. Brooks Roland of Scrum Sports. Thanks a lot for your time here on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. All right.
Appreciate it, Peter. Thank you so much.
All right, good stuff there. Let me go out to Dan Harajon of the Scrum Sports. Also, your prediction, Conn Smythe, and do the Lightning put it out tonight?
I definitely believe the Lightning are going to win, and I do believe it's Vasi. It's what Brooks said. If you look at his performance in each of the 4 rounds, his goals against and his down in each round is better in each round, and his save percentage is higher. He deserves that, Conn Smythe, and I do believe they're going to close it out.
All right, there you go, Dan Harajon of Scrum Sports. Go ahead and promote yourself.
You can find me on Twitter at @Harajon, but all of the links that Brooks said, he's my boss over at Scrum Sports. It's thescrumsports.com. We cover the Lightning throughout the whole season, so including the off season. So catch us there.
Dan, I appreciate your time along with Brooks, man. You guys do such a phenomenal job. Definitely don't be strangers here on the Sports Web Live on the Notoriety Sports Network, and I love St. Pete, all right?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff there. Let me go out to the legend himself, Leo Haggerty, former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Production. Your prediction, my friend.
Peter, you're not going to like this.
Okay.
I said in the beginning it was going to be the Lightning in 5, and I'm sticking with it. Understand this. NHL players hate to lose, especially in a clinching game where they're going to parade the cup around in your building. You are going to see Montreal come out like a caged animal tonight. I think Carey Price has the game of his life. I think it goes 2-1 Montreal in overtime, and then the Lightning lock it up in Tampa. But Conn Smythe, there's no doubt about it. It's 88.
Okay.
It's a given. And again, poor Montreal, 2 things happened to them that they couldn't control. One, Hedman doesn't get Denars. Vasilevsky doesn't get the Vezina. What do they do the next 2 nights? Well, Vasilevsky throws up a 40-save performance. Hedman gets a goal. And now they don't let the Lightning family show up. The Montreal players are going, hey, guys, don't fight against us here. Let this happen. And I tell you what, Peter, one thing I never thought you would be able to say is that the Tampa Bay Lightning are faster than the Montreal Canadiens. Usually the Canadiens are the fastest team in the league.
Yeah.
Tampa's faster. And someone asked me the other day, I think it may have been you, the best player on Montreal, where would he fit into Tampa? I said he'd be the sixth man on that second line or maybe even the first man on the third line. The talent level is just preposterous, SAT word.
Very good.
And I just think it's going to go 5. I think it's going to be a great game tonight. I'll tell you what, though, Peter, if Tampa Bay scores first and they've never been behind, I'm rescinding my bet because I think then it's all over but the tears.
Yep, 15-2 when they score the first goal in this series. Of course, Montreal, when they get down, they're 1-6. Numbers don't lie, my friend, and neither does Leo Haggerty, the legend himself. Go ahead and promote yourself, and then we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, go take a look at us on www.itsportsmag.com. We just posted our interview with Tony Perez, who does a golf school for wounded and veterans, one arm, no legs, and it's a great thing. We put that up, and we're going to have Jim Thies, our hockey guy, on Wednesday, and I think that's pretty much going to be it.
All right, my friend. Good stuff. Leo Haggerty, the legend himself, here on the Sports Web Live on the Notoriety Sports Network. And I love St. Pete. Thanks a lot for your time, boss. All right, enjoy the game.
Take care, my friend, and I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong, too. But you know what? Usually you're kind of right. And we both said Game 5. Even our Lightning insider there, Mr. Travis Freely of Rocket Sports and Entertainment, said the same thing. But we'll see what happens. This Lightning team seems like they're out to prove something, and they may prove it tonight as repeating for Stanley Cup champions. Unbelievable. Good stuff, Leo. Appreciate you, all right?
Take care, my friend.
All right, there you go. Let me go ahead and read these comments, and then we'll get you out of here. Yash says, let's go Bolts. There we go. Dan Hood says, fire. Appreciate it, Dan. Welcome to the family. Hope you had a great 4th. I hope you did too, my friend. Let me go out to Christopher Cole. Go Bolts. Yes, let me fire that. Let's effing go. I'm not going to say the F. Oh, well, I see. He said, let's go. Welcome to Tampa, Aaron Rodgers, Troy Polamalu, King Troy, Trojan Legend SC. Not happening there. Christopher Bolts need to finish the job tonight because you don't want to give the Canadians life. Agree. And Christopher, again, I wonder how many times they will show Tampa fans in Tampa because they only showed them once during Game 3. Thanks to all the guests here. Brooks Rowland of Scrum Sports. Dan Harajon of Scrum Sports, the Stash of Shooter and Stash, Leo Haggerty, former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions, and my Lightning insider, Mr. Travis Freely of Rocket Sports and Entertainment. We'll see you again. Go Bolts. My prediction, they win tonight. They close it out and become the first team since the 2016-2017 Pittsburgh Penguins to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. All right, so without further ado, guys, enjoy the game and do 3 things for me as I get you out of here. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Enjoy the game.
What a performance. Every line, every D, the goaltender, kind of shared sacrifice. You can see it. You can see your determination, All right, it's just one more step. What game's the hardest one to win, though, boys? The fourth one. You have put yourselves in a position, but this is not a time to take a break.
We're obviously one win away now. I know how fun it was last year when we won, so want to do that again. You don't know how many chances you're going to get.
This group's, very mature in terms of realizing the task at hand.
We're going to do whatever it takes to win the next game, and we're not satisfied until that's done.
We're very focused. We have a goal in mind because I got to stay in the present, stay in the moment to win your shift. Don't be too high, don't be too low.
It's all we're really focused on and working together as a team on it. And, we're trying to create something special.
Process over outcome. Work over hope. That's what we do. TV timeout to TV timeout to TV timeout. Close these out, boys.
Shoot, score! Ruda! Now to Victor Hedman. Winds and shoots. Score! Nothing changes in our game. Nothing changes. A lot across the board. Maybe a 2-1-0. Look at that. Kucherov! Kucherov! Vortex together. Vortex together. Shoots. Saved by Price. Johnson scores. Boys with the puck, fellas. Tyler Johnson! Tyler Johnson!
Right, because this isn't over yet. Right, boys, you guys are special. Can A.
Oh, wait, let's have the best game of our life tonight!
Hey, Stan Arthur here for the I Love St. Pete Facebook group. If you're a business owner looking to connect with tens of thousands of potential new local customers, you owe it to yourself to get enrolled in our Key Tag Rewards program. Since 2019, we've signed up more than 200 local merchants. Sponsor opportunities are available too, such as our group banner ad and even your own custom key tags. Just go to stpetekeytag.com, get enrolled, and get ready to get busy. stpetekeytag.com.
Notoriety Sports Network. Breaking news, live shows, unprecedented content. Notoriety Sports Network. Built different.